Bryce, is this thing on?
It's on, Ren. It's on.
We're back. We're back for another afternoon beer discussion.
We are. Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
Good to be back amongst the beers and amongst afternoon beer discussions. We have slowed down since COVID, but that's okay.
But we're going to speed back up.
We're going to speed back up, yes. And looking forward to today's session. If you've just joined the show, yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, if you've just joined the show, welcome. We're from Equity Mates Investing Podcast, and today's rules are pretty simple, as they always are. One beer, one topic, and you're the first person to finish their beer has the right to hang up on the conversation. This is totally unedited. That were the rules that we went into when we took on YouTube. So looking forward to today.
Took on YouTube, yeah.
Took on YouTube, yes.
That's it. So look, we can finish our beer and hang up at any time, but I don't think we're going to want to today because we've got a pretty interesting company that we're going to talk about.
Yes.
And we normally start this off with a question. So I'm going to kick it off with a question to you.
Love it.
Now, the company that we're going to talk about today is called Palantir, and we'll get into who they are and what they do and some of the controversy around them, blah, 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 all of that. But to kick it off with a question, the Palantir CEO in 2014 said, the minute companies go public, they are less competitive.
Okay.
Why would he be taking his company public in 2020?
Because he has Alzheimer's and can't remember what he said way back when.
Okay, that is an interesting theory.
Because he's taking it public, given the extraordinary valuations that we're seeing in markets at the moment, and he wants to take advantage of that. That's perhaps one reason.
Maybe.
The other reason would be that, there's a classic reason companies go to market, and that is to raise capital for various business reasons. Maybe he has need for money.
Yeah.
He wants to exit from his company.
Yeah.
What else? What's the answer?
Well, unfortunately, there isn't a good answer because no one actually knows why. But what we do know is that Palantir has been exploring an IPO and have filed for a confidential IPO. And that means they're basically looking to go public. It's not guaranteed that they will, but they're following this confidential IPO process is the same process that Spotify, Slack, and Uber all went through before they went public. And so it's likely that Palantir are going to go public, despite the fact that they're one of the oldest startups. They were started in 2003. They're valued at between 20 and 26 billion, and they've resisted going public for a very long time. And now it seems something has changed and they are going public.
So before we get into the nuts and bolts of Palantir and why it's such an interesting company, as well as their CEO or founder, what is it about a confidential IPO or initial public offering? And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially where a public goes from private market to being listed on the stock exchange. What is it about a confidential IPO that makes it different to a normal IPO process? Do you know?
Yeah, it's just less information that they have to give, I'm pretty sure. Well, it's in the name, it's confidential. I don't think they have to do as much as you would if you were just doing a normal IPO. Less disclosure, I'm pretty sure is the main thing.
Interesting, meaning that they can keep that information withheld when they become public as well, because isn't one of the whole ideas of being public, and this is obviously sometimes one of the bugbears of going public, is the level of scrutiny and transparency that you need to give the market, especially, your shareholders. So I wonder how they manage to keep that so private.
No different rules when you list. Like when you listed, the rules are the rules. You don't get any special circumstances because your business is secret or tied to the military or anything like that. If you list. But yeah, it's just during the IPO process itself, it's a bit different.
Interesting. Okay. And I didn't know that Spotify and Uber and whatnot also did the same sort of process. That's interesting.
Yeah.
They don't want to show their bottom line how unprofitable.
Well, you see, that's the thing. Like, if you're talking about what's common between all those companies, it's that they're all big and none of them really make profits.
Yeah.
Slack, I'm not too sure about. Uber and Spotify, pretty sure they are not profitable. Uber's definitely not profitable. Palantir apparently broke even last year, but for its journey hasn't been profitable. Apparently, no one's really seen their financials publicly. So yeah, maybe that's the thing that ties them all together. Maybe they get a better valuation with a little bit of mystery tied in.
And that's what you're buying into, I guess, the unknown.
That is it. That is it. And look, there is a lot unknown about this company. That is a nice little segue, because if there's one thing that we're going to take away from it, it is perhaps the most unknown of all of these Silicon Valley unicorns that we've seen over the last 2 decades.
Interesting. As unknown as the inner workings of Renaissance technologies? Now there's a question.
Now, does that fall into the bucket of Silicon Valley unicorns?
Technically, no, I think. But who knows? Yeah. Define Silicon Valley unicorn.
Not a hedge fund.
Fair call. Fair call.
Yeah. I think Renaissance is, I guess it's a startup hedge fund in the sense that it's trying something new. When it started, it was trying something new. Don't think it counts as a Silicon Valley startup, though.
If you're unsure what Renaissance Technologies is, we won't dive into it here, but do yourself a favor and go and Google it now. It's an absolutely fascinating hedge fund. It's well worth reading up about their story, so go and check that out. But moving on and keeping with Palantir, Ren. So what is it? So why is this perhaps the most secretive, unknown Silicon Valley unicorn about to IPO?
All right, let's get into it. So the company is a big data and analytics company. That's what it is, and that's what it does. And it's known for taking really complex data sets and drawing out insights and analysis from it. That's probably the sort of basic version of what it does. The a little bit more sexy version of what it does is it is heavily tied to the US military, the US intelligence services, and more recently, police forces across the US. It's got investment from the CIA's venture capital arm, QTEL. Did you know that the CIA had a venture capital arm? Yeah.
Wow, QTEL.
Yeah, so I wonder what pitching to them's like.
Wow.
Their due diligence process would be legit. Like, you're not getting anything through them.
Crazy.
And they've been labeled, so Palantir has been labeled probably the most patriotic company in Silicon Valley. Very integrated with the US military and intelligence infrastructure. They've developed software for Marines and the Army. They've done a whole bunch of stuff for the CIA. Allegedly or reportedly, never been confirmed, they were instrumental in locating and tracking Osama bin Laden before the raid that killed him.
Wow.
So what they do as a business is taking complex data sets and drawing insights and analyzing that data and helping users, find value in that data. Their customer isn't, big tech companies, isn't, normal companies. It's the military and intelligence services, the government. Yeah.
So my question.
Yeah.
My question is, why then do they feel the need to IPO? I feel like they're really potentially opening themselves up. The secrets and information that they'd hold. Why doesn't the government just wrap these guys up and bring them under the fold and say, "See you later"?
Yeah. Well, this was my question to you. This was why I asked you this to begin with, because one, their CEO has said, companies become less competitive when they go public, and two, they're dealing in a very highly classified area.
Yeah.
And obviously, they're not the only company that deals with classified information. Like Microsoft and Amazon are both doing work for the US military. Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, or however you pronounce them, Raytheon, like we have literal arms manufacturers that are publicly traded. So it's not like they're mutually exclusive. You can have confidential information and also be publicly traded.
Interesting.
But it is a funny one. I mean, cynically, potentially they just want to cash out and they've given up.
Yeah. See you later.
Yeah, like two decades of doing the CIA's data analysis is enough for us. We're going to go public, cash these shares out, and see you later.
So is Peter Thiel still the CEO of this company?
So Peter Thiel was never the CEO, I'm pretty sure. He was a co-founder and an investor.
Okay.
The CEO's name is Alex Karp.
Okay. So very interesting. So Thiel, because whenever you look up Thiel, he's very closely linked to this company.
Big time.
For those of you who don't know Peter Thiel, again, have a quick Google, but $2.3 billion is his net worth, and he was one of the early founders or co-founder of PayPal and investor in Facebook and a lot of those early Silicon Valley startups. So he's done very well for himself, and closely tied to a lot of these companies.
Big Trump backer, although apparently not backing Trump in 2020.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess, fascinating IPO. And I'm guessing, have they actually said what they're doing with the funds that they're going to be raising on the market?
No, I don't think so. Before we get onto that, I was reading an article and it sort of gave a good description of some of what the company does, gives you an idea of how they pull data. So I'm just going to read it to you just so you have a decent idea. So the article starts talking about how Palantir was born out of Peter Thiel's work at PayPal, and a bunch of the co-founders worked at PayPal. Obviously, credit card fraud was a big issue, and so they built a bunch of security applications that helped their employees sort of manage credit card fraud. And so then the article picks it up here. Palantir takes a similar approach to finding patterns in complicated data. For example, law enforcement agencies can use it to search for links in phone records, photos, vehicle information, criminal history, biometrics, credit card transactions, addresses, and police reports. Palantir's software allows law enforcement to enter a license plate number and quickly get an itinerary of the routes and places the vehicle has traveled. Police can also use it to map out family and business relationships. Palantir's technology has also been used in New Orleans for predictive policing, and then it goes on from there. So basically, it's like they just get all of these data points, and then they aggregate it all and draw insights, I guess.
That's nuts. That is serious.
It's pretty crazy.
Like having that capabilities at your fingertips, but also B, I'm sure, it's going to be all their IP. Like that's significant power that you can have over a lot of people and businesses, organizations, governments, even like, man.
So here's my, look, I actually don't think this is true, but here's one reason why they might be going public and they might be giving up. It's that from 2003, they had such an edge that no one else could do what they were doing with big data and data analytics and machine learning and all of that. Like no one could draw the insights that they could draw. And they had about 15 years where they were undisputedly the best at this. But potentially AI and machine learning is just closing the gap. And so they're seeing the writing on the wall and they're like, maybe now it's the time to pull out, cash in, give our investors an exit, and go from there.
I mean,
that makes
the
techniques that they're talking about. Yeah, I actually don't think that's true though, because it feels like machine learning and AI have decades to develop, and these guys could stay on the cutting edge. But a lot of that technique of drawing in massive data sets and trying to find insights from it, it feels like most businesses are at least talking like that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an interesting concept. is it just that the governments don't have the expertise to do this themselves? Is it too expensive for them to do this themselves? Like, governments are now kind of at war with each other in terms of the race for the supercomputer. Japan, I think at the moment, has the biggest supercomputer in the world or something along those lines. Like, I'm surprised that they outsource so much of this data analysis to companies like this.
Yeah, I guess so. But I also think it makes a lot of sense. Like, things that the private sector can do better, the government shouldn't try and duplicate.
Sure.
That's why the government doesn't make weapon systems or develop drugs, although there's a debate whether they should maybe try. Yeah, I just think, the smartest minds in Silicon Valley don't want to work for a government salary.
Yeah.
And so let Silicon Valley, let a corporation suck up all this talent and contract out to the government what needs to be done.
So fascinating IPO, well, potential for IPO. It sounds like that there's still a few things that they need to go through, especially with this sort of secretive approach. My question to you, Ren, would be, if and when it does hit, is this something that will be on your watch list?
Definitely on my watch list. I don't know if I'll buy it. I mean, I'd probably buy a little bit. But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating company.
It is.
It's been a fascinating company for a while. I'm going to flip it around for you and ask you a question. This isn't the question I want to end with. I got another one that I want to end it with. A lot of questions today.
Okay, that's good. I need another beer, bro.
All right. Well, I'll try and be quick. Emphasis on try. So we like playing ethical or unethical with a lot of our guests. And so I want to play ethical or unethical with you for Palantir. And I'll give you a few dot points on the good and a few dot points on the bad, and just so you can help make your decision. So on the ethical side, they've been instrumental in preventing terrorist attacks. The CEO once said that he hears about a foiled terrorist attack in Europe every week.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of terrorism that they've stopped. They reportedly helped track down Osama bin Laden. They've stopped a number of human trafficking operations. They've been instrumental in tracking disease outbreaks, including the COVID outbreak. And they have been selective with their clients to some extent. So, for example, they said no to all big tobacco or to all tobacco companies because they didn't want their technology to be used by tobacco companies.
Okay.
So there are a few points on the good, a few points on the bad. They've done a lot of work with ICE, which is Immigrations and Customs Enforcement in the US, which has been really controversial, including things like making profiles of undocumented immigrant children, so that ICE could track them and better deport them and stuff like that. They've also been involved in predictive policing, especially in New Orleans, which is this whole where a crime's going to happen, who's going to commit a crime before they do it, where a crime's going to happen before they occur, and then sending a lot of police to that neighborhood or to that person, which overwhelmingly discriminates against poor communities and communities of color. And then also just all the work that they've done with the CIA, the US military, and all of that stuff. So that's a bit of a spiel. Ethical or unethical?
Wow. Look, great question. Without knowing kind of what their stated mission is, I guess. Look, I'm not going to deny that there's some serious unethical elements of the business, and there's probably a lot of deep, dark, secret things that are going on that we will never know about and that are probably very, very unethical. But I think at the highest level, I'd have to say they're an ethical company, stopping terrorism, preventative measures, whilst it might be something that they could probably tweak a little. But I think even working with CIA and US military, if that's for the betterment of society, for the Western world, whatever, then I'm going to have to say that broadly speaking, they would pass my positive screen for an ethical company. Yeah. Where does it sit with you? Unless they're touching my data, and then I don't want to know them.
I have no doubt that in one way, shape, or form they have all of our data.
Yeah, definitely.
I would probably say unethical. there's probably a few things that, regardless of all the good they do, just probably aren't okay. But I would hazard a guess that basically whatever you think of the US military and intelligence complex, and wherever you decide on the ethical split for them, is where you fit this company. I think there would be a very little divergence. Like, there wouldn't be a lot of people saying the US military is unethical and Palantir are ethical, or vice versa.
Yeah.
They really, like, a lot of what they do feels like just an extension of that.
Definitely.
And like, it's tough because the military and intelligence are necessary and they do a really good job, but it's really hard to say that they're ethical given some recent history, I think, and recent foreign adventures. Yeah.
So you're on the negative screen. I'm on the positive screen.
Yeah. You're just an heartless, unethical capitalist.
Give me a tobacco company any day of the week. No, kidding.
Well, you normally say, just give me a dart any day of the
week. No, not true. All right, Ren. Well, I've almost finished my beer. It's been an enjoyable conversation to get back to it. I know you had a question to close out, though.
Yeah. All right. Final question to close out. Finish your beer, and then we're out of here. Palantir is going to likely IPO this year, round about the $20 to $26 billion range. Airbnb is also likely to IPO this year, somewhere around the $30 to $31 billion range. Who would you rather? Shares in Palantir or shares in Airbnb?
For free?
Well, no, like, you'd have to invest in them, but which one would you be investing in?
Airbnb or Palantir? I would have to be going Palantir.
Really?
Yeah.
Jeez, we're disagreeing a lot today.
Yeah, I just think given what's going on in the broader market at the moment in the Airbnb space, I think there's a lot of challenges that they're going to have to overcome. From a COVID point of view, I feel like Palantir are a company that are going to be able to withstand cyclical sort of markets like this. It sounds like they're always going to have work to do. It's in a part of, well, without knowing the competition that they're facing, but if they can continue, I guess, doing what they're doing, I think the shorter term play for me would absolutely be Palantir. Airbnb, I think, tough for them right now, very tough. Airbnb's been killed here in Sydney. You look at what's going on. It's I can't see when they're going to be back to number one. Unless you're taking it from.
We could do a whole other episode on this because I couldn't disagree with you more.
Oh, interesting. Well, why?
I just think Airbnb is a category killer. Like, they have so much growth left in them. They are best in class, and there isn't even a close second. They've disrupted the whole hotel industry, all of the accommodation industry. Of course, they're going to hurt in the short term, but I think it's very rare that you find a business that just becomes synonymous with a category. And I think their growth potential, if they can capitalize on it, is huge from here.
So I guess that all depends on your time horizon then. Really?
What's your time horizon? What are you in a rush for? Where are you going?
2 or 3 weeks. 2 or 3 weeks. I'm a day trader.
Mate, we've got at least 40 years left of this podcast, so you got plenty of time to let it all play out.
Well, when both go public, I'll put some money in Palantir, you put some in Airbnb, and we'll check in on this video in 40 years' time and see who
done. Do we make a bet for 2021 already? I'll say that Airbnb from IPO price, and this is a bit uncertain because we have no idea what the IPO. No, actually,
we don't even know if they'll IPO.
At the end of this, let's do it this way. At the end of 2021. I think Airbnb will be more valuable than Palantir.
I don't think that's a fair bet.
Why not?
Because it depends on their IPO price.
No. I'm not saying percentage change or anything. I'm just saying straight market cap value.
Or didn't you say that Palantir is worth something like 26 billion now? Isn't Airbnb already in the 40s or 50s?
Not in the 40s or 50s. The estimate is 31.
31.
So $5 billion difference.
31B.
Yeah.
Deal. I mean, I've got to take the deal.
Done.
Looking forward to checking in at the end of 2021 to see how these things played out. But Ren, we'll leave it there. It's great to be back with Afternoon Beer Discussions. Come across to equitymates.com and follow us at the podcast if you have enjoyed this conversation. We look forward to next week.
Sounds good.